I'm in my studio today trying to resurrect something. It's actually the resurrection of Christ. I started it like 15 years ago, it seems like. And it's on paper and it's pasted onto prepared canvas and it's crumbling and tearing and everything else. And you know something? I began to think it's unsalvable. I can't do anything with it. I've ruined it. But, you know, once you jettison the idea of making the most perfect painting on the face of the earth, or anything for that matter that's perfect, you can get on with your life. And so I thought to myself, I like this image. I like it a lot. I feel all the parts are there. They're just not adhering. They literally aren't adhering. And I thought, what'll I do? Well, one of the things to do is to stop treating it like it's some sort of precious jewel of an object. This is just a painting. It isn't God, it isn't Christ, it isn't the real resurrection. It's me just having a go at dealing with a theme which is close to my heart. So what am I going to do to it? So here I am, paper, bits hanging off, things aren't working. Well, what do I have? We look around the studio and we discover I have a gallon of Mod Podge. And so I'm going to take the decoupage glue, and I'm not going to do this beautiful decoupage. I'm literally just going to glop it on until the whole thing is at least glued back together. So I've already done a little bit over here on that side. I don't know if you can see, it looks a little flatter than the other. Well, there we are. So I am now going to go over to this side here, and I'm going to show you what I mean by having at it and glopping on stuff, just so you can salvage a painting you began and then work back into it. So, here's my Mod Podge, and there isn't much in there. So I'm going to come over here. It's like, I know I'm off camera, but life goes on. I'm going to gop into it any amount of Mod Podge. It's not an expensive glue. It's non-toxic. And here we are. Now, let's just gop on a little bit here, underneath here. Oh, Lord, it's just completely a mess. But, you know, if I left it the way it was, it would stay a mess, and who would care? So now here I am. I'm going to try and do something with it. I already put some glue underneath at some stage, so it softened up the paper, and it made it look a little tacky. There we go. Just remember, it's not Jesus himself, so you can just go to it. And there we are. We can just lodge it down to the end and whack it together. Let it get tacky again and go back into it. Do a bit on the surface. Do a lot of it. Just put it in there. Just don't worry about, oh my Lord, it's just not going to be perfect. You get the theme? No perfection. There we go. And gradually you begin to see that you hadn't lost your mind originally, but you actually had a decent image in there somewhere. Now, how would you have ever remembered that reality if you hadn't got the thing out and started working back into it again? So here we are, gluing the resurrection back together. I'm sure there's a sermon or a theological statement in that somewhere, but we're not going there right now. So there we are. Why am I bothering, you might ask? Well, first, I kind of like the image. And secondly, that's the life of an artist. Sometimes you just don't know what's going to happen, and there comes a point when it's just, are you going to finish it? Are you going to neglect it? A bit like relationships, you know. What are you going to do with them? Just throw them on a shelf somewhere because they don't look good? Or all the details haven't been worked out? I hope not. You won't have a successful marriage if you do that, or a friendship for that matter. And who knows what disasters may lie in the wake of your child-rearing abilities. So here we have it. It's not a precious object. It's simply an interesting image. And it sort of, now it begins to sort of give me something of itself. What is happening here? What is it that's alive? What is it that I need to keep? What is it that this tells me about the resurrection in this case? And what can I do to ensure that this image comes alive? Now I've started back into it. So I'm just going to work on it a little bit more, gluing and stabbing at things in the hopes that we can keep the resurrection in play here. Get my drift. This is a bit more problematical down here because it's a thicker piece of paper, but you know, if this glue doesn't work, then I'll find another one. You know, glue is remarkably cheap. Not much else today is, but glue can be. And so, no need to worry about it. Just glop it on. Now, if you don't have a lot of glue, I'm not sure what to do, but usually somebody has Elmer's glue from schools or something, or if you want to go on the internet and find a recipe for flour paste, the only thing about flour paste, of course, is that it molds if it's molded. There we go. Shut that door. Scoop it down. There we go. It's going to be fine. Just keep at it until you're sure that it's hunker down. Hunker down here. There we go. And then I just go back in with this so that I can take the tackiness off the surface. Make sure it's got down. I think this is going to be more of a problem, but we'll work at it. We'll just work at it. And so I think you see here an image which, in a sense, has lain dormant in my studio, rolled up, and now is emerging. As with many of my works, it's rather large by ordinary standards, but not by artist standards, I don't think. But that's not the issue. It doesn't matter how large an image is. Because at some stage you have to look at your work and say, is this good? Is this something I want to put my name to? Is this finished? Is this as finished as it's going to get? Or what? But don't be afraid of your art. Don't let it tell you that it has to be so perfect that you never go back into it. It is, after all, paint, paper, glue, and canvas. And until you, the artist, get hold of all of that stuff, that's all it is. So, easy come, easy go. So we'll work a bit more on this later on, I think, but I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I can now see what that image was that so engrossed me, I would say, 15 years ago.